Thanks, Peter. Another caller on the phone lines. Go ahead.
Hi, this is Ken Kramer for Spaceflight. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Sure.
yes.
Yeah, hi. I'm just wondering, you mentioned that these are volcanic, and I guess I thought you were going to be surprised if you saw volcanic material there. So are you surprised, and what is that telling you?
Well, we've seen, well, rather from remote sensing, we have seen that there is this glassy material quite commonly seen around Mars. So we're not surprised. I mean, one of the things that we can do with a microscope, as you can see, we're spreading out particles over a large field. So one individual particle may be 1 in 1,000 of what we're looking at. So we're able to look down at rather very small percentages of what might be making up the overall soil. So just being able to spread out the particles means that we're able to differentiate a lot of the processes and a lot of the stages of the particles that are taking place. So we're not surprised to see volcanic material. We know that essentially that's where it all came from originally, and we've seen this from remote sensing. What is new is seeing it at this resolution and seeing the individual particles.
Thanks, Tom. I believe we have one more caller with a question. Go ahead, please.
Hello. This is the Times West Virginian. Regarding Tega, is it possible that the screen is filtering out material with the cohesive properties, thus biasing the sample?
Well, it's hard to tell. You don't actually see the material that goes into the Tega oven. The particles have to be smaller than the screen sizes, but if you looked at the microscopic images and saw the 1 millimeter scale bar, that is the size of the openings in the Tega screen. So you can see the particles are all much smaller, much smaller than that screen. And it's the clumping and stickiness of these tiny particles that prevented it from going through. So I suspect, as you might imagine, as the dam broke and the particles all of a sudden careened through the screen, that you would get a mix of all the different types. But I can't positively say that, but that's my suspicion.
Thanks, Peter. Is there another question here in the theater? Alan, go ahead.
I want to direct this to Peter, please. In terms of the dig, that's the ongoing extension or deepening of the trenches, where does that stand in terms of reaching to the hard, solid feature that we're hoping to? Is that an ongoing effort, and will we be seeing that soon?
Well, if you look at the trench picture that I showed, and the one that Mark was showing, his little animation, you could see what looks like choppiness. It's like you're using the blade of the scoop to drag across the ground, and if it's a very hard material, it'll chatter, and you can kind of see some chatter marks there. So this is hard material, there's no doubt about it. We would like to really test the hardness by using our scraper on it next, so that'll be happening over the next few days. I don't know exactly which day we'll do it, but sometime in the next week. And that gives us more purchase on the ground, and we can really apply more force and a stronger material to it. So if it's a thin layer, we should be able to crack it open. If it's a very thick layer, we might be able to scrape down just a few millimeters.
Go ahead.
No, everything that you all are presenting is very exciting and new. I'm just wondering if there's anything in particular, whether it be from the weather or the images or the soil, that stood out in your minds as being maybe exceptionally intriguing at all?
Well, I think I would say what's really impressed me about the landing site is looking around the site as a whole with the color images. It's all Martian yellowish red. It's the same color that we expect from the other sites. When you zoom in, everything is just different brightnesses, but the same basic color. And in this, utterly Martian landscape, when we dig just a couple inches down, all of a sudden we see something that stands out more than anything we've seen from a Mars lander before, in terms of the imaging and the color difference. So that impresses me with how much it just shows off how unique and interesting this stuff is.
All right, go ahead. Sorry, Milton.
A comment from the weather. What was impressive is how well mixed the atmosphere is. Like the dust is very well mixed within the first few kilometers of the atmosphere. And how much the temperature has been changing, and the amount of dust sort of constant since the beginning of the mission. Okay.
Peter or Tom, do you want to add to the discussion?
Well, I think that partly it's just zooming in at this length scale that we haven't seen before, seeing the particles, the individual particles that we knew were there. We knew that they had to be very fine from the scattering experiments that we'd seen. But this is the first time that we've been able to see them against the background, do particle size distributions, and start to put data in at the bottom of the length scale for another planet. The first time that we've reached down to this level.
The thing that impressed me was looking down at the lander leg and seeing exposed, what looked like exposed ice, something called Snow Queen, and then looking under the lander to the Holy Cow feature. This was truly a surprise to me, and one thing I love is that we get a close-up picture of that first exposed ice. I think it's called Snow Queen, is it? Snow Queen, and it has all kinds of modulations in it. There's little pits, there's a little, what looks like a crack, there's level changes. It's not just a flat sheet of ice at all, it's got structure. What's causing that structure? So I think before we end this mission, we're going to pretty much lay waste to our national park system that we've developed, and we're going to expose this ice table as much as we're able with the arm, and we're going to look at the shapes underneath the soil that can't be seen from orbit or even from Mark's camera without using the arm, and this will be new territory for to explore, and something wonderful is likely to come out of it. So stay tuned, and we'll see what's under the surface. We'll peel back the surface layers.
Thank you, panel, for today. Thanks for the questions. Before we sign off from Tucson, I want to wish all the gentlemen a happy Father's Day this weekend. We'll talk to you again next week, and until then, please continue to check the several websites for updates on the Phoenix Mars mission. Talk to you soon. Thanks.